tonight on the Cover One Buffalo podcast, we are going to be joined by Evan Lazar to break down Patriots week. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, it's Patriots week. How we doing?
You know, I'm doing good. Patriots week doesn't quite have the feel to it that it did.
You don't get quite as many text messages as you used to?
It's very quiet from my New England friends. I think they're all on to the Celtics, to be honest, the ones that I talked to. So it's not even as fun in terms of being able to talk trash or anything like that. But I understand why. And so I'm actually excited to have our guest on and sort of break down this Patriots team, because none of my friends were willing to take my calls this week and break down this Patriots matchup with me. So at least we mandated Evan to come on here.
Yeah. We'll have some fun here and talk a little bit, and we can even ask him, coming from covering a team where expectations made it very, very difficult to balance things out. It's a fun way to do it, but we'll talk through. I know there's been a lot of frustration about expectations and being able to put together consistency, and I think there's always a balance between acknowledging that things can be better. There are more things that we can be doing to increase efficiency, to be able to improve consistency, but there does seem to be a lack of perspective on what we're seeing, and that there's a gap between could be even better and fire this bum. We need somebody else calling plays, and it's always tough to be able to balance that out.
It's tough to balance that, and it's tough to have those conversations on Twitter or X. Like all week, we've been getting grilled for showing the EPA, showing DVOA, showing these data points that aren't just like baseless volume data, yards, and things like that. These are parts of data that have context, and we're comparing them to the league and league wide and trying to explain that, hey, well, offense and scoring's kind of down league wide all around. And so you're going to have some of these weeks, and also being able to frame it in that way, but also say like, yes, I'm not sitting here making an excuse. I'm not trying to be a homer. There are things they're leaving on the table. It is not perfect. There's things to clean up. The offense is a work in progress, but while it's a work in progress, it's still good. And no, we shouldn't be asking the coach if he should remove play calling duties from Ken Dorsey or fire your offensive coordinator mid-season to hand the job over to Joe Brady, who has not really proven to be a successful NFL head or play caller. And so those are the conversations that we're trying to combat, but then it's just met with the inability to have that nuance of like, well, yeah, it isn't perfect, but it's still good, right? And it's still good when you compare it to the rest of the league, and you're going to have some stinker games. And that's why, to your point, I'm glad to have Evan on here, because we watched a lot of Patriots games. I think everybody remembers those high-end games that they had, but they had games where they didn't meet their own expectations, and having to deal with that type of stuff. And maybe we're just still so new to this that we're struggling to get to the point of dealing with having high expectations and not meeting them every single week.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's bring on our friend and frequent guest of the show, Evan Lazar. Evan, how we doing, sir?
I'm doing good, guys. That was like a trip down memory lane for me just now, just listening to you guys talk about that. It reminds me of the good old days, and now we're going to talk about the 1-5 Patriots. I still feel like sometimes I'm saying it backwards, right? Like I'm supposed to be saying 5-1 Patriots, but I'm really saying the 1-5 Patriots. But I find the whole thing that you guys were just talking about more fascinating, honestly, than the team I currently cover. So I'm fun to talk about it.
Well, I mean, talk about it a little bit. I mean, honestly, and it's different. I think once you do win a Super Bowl, let alone multiple, there comes a great deal more benefit of the doubt, a great deal more leash on what's going on. But you experience some of this, especially some of those stretches in between some of the Super Bowl years where a lot of questions were being asked based on what that measuring stick was. And I think you had an interesting perspective on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I go back to Brady's last year in 2019. The famous quote that he said going into a primetime game against the Lamar Jackson Baltimore Ravens was, "I'm the most miserable 8-0 quarterback in the NFL." So the Patriots were 8-0 going into that game. They had a dominant defense the first half of the season, but Brady knew deep down that it wasn't good enough, that once they got into the playoffs, that their offense wasn't performing well enough, and they had a lot of issues already with some of the stuff that they're having issues with now, lack of weapons, lack of continuity, things like that. And he knew that comparing it to even just the year before in 18, but 16 and 14 and 04 and 03 and 01, he knew that it wasn't Super Bowl caliber. Like, he knew it wasn't at that type of level, and they weren't going to win a championship if that's how they were going to play. So what ended up actually happening, I think, with the Patriots over the years is that we were comparing the Patriots to the Patriots. Like, we weren't comparing the Patriots to the other 31 teams in the league. We were comparing the Patriots of 2019 to the Patriots of 2018 or 2016 and saying to ourselves and on our shows and stuff, well, back when they won the Super Bowl in 16, like, it looked like this, and now it looks like that. And like, those things I think will become more difficult because you do have to keep it in perspective of you're playing this season and this group of teams and this, schedule and this path to a championship. And sometimes you can get caught up in, well, what's the best Patriots team? And was this Patriots team better than that Patriots team? And then you get into this whole thing when in reality, all they have to do is beat who's on their schedule.
Yeah. And sort of in that vein, when you have high end performances like that on your schedule, talk how hard, like in your day, I remember a lot of those Patriots games, especially the games against the Bills, where it would just be almost perfection on offense from Brady and not being able to stop them. But you watch back that Bills Giants game, I'm sure. I don't have historical DVOA since Aaron Schatz hasn't transitioned all the historical DVOA over yet. I was going to try to look back through some of those Patriots years. Do you remember some like just real stinker performances where shutout in the first half type of thing? And maybe in some of those runs, are there any of those performances where you were watching this Bills game being like, oh yeah, I kind of saw that from really good Patriots teams also?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that 19 season is littered with them. If you want to even just go back that far, that whole season, I know they didn't win a Super Bowl at the end of the year, but that was still the Brady Patriots, and they were coming off a Super Bowl. And that entire team, all year long struggled on offense. There were other years as well. 2006 was sort of like the first year that it really happened where the offense struggled. They made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. They had a lead at halftime over the Colts and Peyton Manning in Indianapolis and lost in the second half of the game. And, their offense was up and down that year. 2013 was another big one. They had some rookie receivers. Gronk got hurt, started hurt, got hurt again, that sort of thing. And they had an up and down offense, just trying to think of like individual games. I remember in 19, they played the Eagles in early, maybe week 7, week 8 of that season, something like that. And it was just an absolute rock fight. Like it was just an absolute rock fight. Neither team could move the ball, but the Eagles weren't really expected to move the ball, and the Patriots kind of were. And they actually ended up winning the game essentially on a trick play. Julian Edelman threw a touchdown pass to Philip Dorsett in the second half that essentially won the game for them. And they had to do that because they had to find a way to move the ball. Like they really just didn't have the offense otherwise to move the ball and win that game. So it wasn't all perfect. I mean, I think that's what we all remember it by now here as well. We just remember all the perfect times and all the games where, Brady magic at the end or, just scoring 50 points or something like that. But in general, I think what made the Patriots so great, and I think this is something that, the Bills are kind of searching for, and I think they did it, honestly, against the Giants last week. You're not going to have your 98-mile-an-hour fastball every single week. So in order to, go on a run in the postseason, especially, you have to be able to win games in different ways. Like some weeks it's going to be a shootout. Some weeks it might be a defensive battle. Some weeks you might be playing in weather. Like those are the different types of things that when you have to play 3 or 4 games to win a championship in a postseason run, it can't all be your A game all the way through. Like that's just not how it ever goes. And like the Patriots, as people know who've watched all their Super Bowls, like their Super Bowls all were close. They all took on different lives of their own. And like 18 is a perfect example. AFC Championship game against Kansas City, it's Brady, Mahomes, toe-to-toe into overtime. I think it was 36-30 was the final score. It was a shootout. Then they go into the Super Bowl, they win it 13-3, right? In like a completely defensive battle in the Super Bowl. And if you can't be able to win, different ways, then it gets really tough to string the playoff wins together in succession because you are going to run into different types of games.
So you're saying we need trick plays. That's what I'm taking out of that.
That was the main takeaway. That was the main
takeaway. They had some few trick plays up their sleeve. I mean, people remember like the drop in the Super Bowl against the Eagles when Brady dropped the double reverse pass, but like they always had some trick plays. Like 14 in Baltimore, Edelman threw a touchdown pass in the divisional round of that game to Danny.
You guys did to us a couple times for sure too.
Yeah. I remember so many games on the other end of your experience, Evan, in that just ugly, nasty games that the Patriots didn't deserve to win, and they always found a way to win and be able to go through there. And now being in a position with games like Sunday where it was ugly, and I don't know that the Bills were even the better team on the field. If the Giants execute at the end of the first half, if they execute a little bit better at the end of the game, they probably should have won that game. But being in a position where we can't appreciate the fact that, hey, they came back twice and had to come back. They came back, took the lead, gave it up again, came back and took the lead again and found a way to win is okay to survive and move along and be able to recognize that.
Yeah. Especially in the course of the regular season when all you're really trying to do is stack wins together and like worry about how it looks in terms of like the style points. Once you get to the end of the year, like the Patriots, their whole thing, and this is, I think, something that really has this iteration of the Patriots, the post-Brady Patriots, have not been able to replicate this. The Patriots were always better post-Thanksgiving. Like that, they were hit their stride post-Thanksgiving, and Belichick would always say real football starts after Thanksgiving because they didn't want to peak in October. They wanted to peak in January. So that was a big thing. And this Patriots team last year, the year before that in 21, they're horrible in the second half of the year. So that's just another thing that has kind of gone by the wayside with Brady.
Yeah, and I think most good teams do, right? You're working through stuff. Eric Turner talks about it all the time on the offense. It's not a finished product right now. Even the defense switching over to McDermott is not a finished product. So those are great points here. Getting into this matchup, Evan, before we get into sides of the ball, though, real quick, obviously the Bills have a pretty long injury list here coming up, and we can read that off to people. But I want to talk about what's this Patriots injury report here looking like before we dig into the sides of the ball.
Do we need to like split it up into two different screens to see
a lot
it
of
all?
Names? Yeah,
so you do. Like
and is it a tank injury list?
Yeah, right. Like I literally had to pay for Twitter Blue just to like fit the injury list all in one tweet. So there's 20 players on the Patriots injury report, which is essentially like 40% of their active roster is on the injury report. Now, the guys that are listed as limited, those ones are usually Belichick mind games, right? Like it's usually like Brady was limited with a shoulder injury for like 6 years, like it was just, they just would put stuff like that on there, and like veteran guys that they maybe weren't, didn't want to overwork in practice because they had little bumps and bruises and stuff like that. So some of those guys might not end up playing if they really are hurt. But I think, between the 14 thing, I think it is, limited guys, I would say like 12 or 13 of them will probably play in the game. The guys that are out, though, that haven't been at practice the last couple of days are some big names as well. I mean, you're looking at their starting left tackle, Trent Brown, Hunter Henry, who got rolled up on in the game last week, and that doesn't look like a great injury. Jonathan Jones, who's working through injury. Josh Uche is working through multiple injuries. Those guys are more iffy right now. And this Patriots team, I mean, like, look, they have a lot of issues, and it's not the main reason why they're 1-5, but it is a part of their story that they've been really injured this year. And I know Buffalo's had some injuries too, but losing a guy like Matthew Judon, for example, and Christian Gonzalez, their first round pick, for a team that doesn't have a whole lot of blue chip talent, like those two guys being out for the season essentially has been a huge blow to this football team.
Yeah, imagine going back. I'll get to the defensive matchup in a minute, but imagine going back and telling you that going from a rookie cornerback to JC Jackson was going to be a terrifying transition.
Yeah, it's so disappointing with Gonzalez because the Patriots, like, you can really go back through their first round draft picks almost a full decade and be like, ugh, like, Malcolm Brown, Dominique Easley, N'Keal Harry, Cole Strange, right? Like, it's just not very pretty. And then they finally hit on Christian Gonzalez. They finally got a guy that can clearly play and has a ton of natural talent. And then in week 4 of the season, he tears his labrum. He's out for the year. So that's like sort of the run that they're on right now in terms of the bad luck.
At least there, it's not a, knee ankle kind of thing where you're worried about the long term.
And athleticism.
Obviously, his long-term potential looks very, very legit. So at least you have that coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's...
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You needed that tonight, right? Let's piggyback off of sort of that injury report, start on the offensive side of the ball with that offensive line, because obviously with the Trent Brown injury, we'll start with this offensive line. To me, watching the Patriots team, obviously, Mac Jones takes the brunt of what is wrong in New England in the offense, and he deserves a fair share of what is going on. But I always am a big firm believer in the cliche. It's one on the line of scrimmage. And I've consistently seen in watching Patriots games, the offensive line losing the line of scrimmage. And it is just such a thing that for years, those championship Patriots teams always won the line of scrimmage, even when you didn't have the weapons and things like that. So it's so weird to see you guys rolling out a Patriots jersey, losing the battle at the line of scrimmage. Sort of talk about this unit as a whole, how it's coming together this year, and sort of what's going on right up there in front.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, we're the Patriots, I said we because I now work for the team. The Patriots are putting Dante Scarnecchia in the Patriots Hall of Fame on Saturday this week before the Bills game. And Mike Vrabel's coming up. He's going in as the player that's going in this year. But Mr. Kraft, Robert Kraft, the Patriots owner, he invoked executive privilege in the spring and said, I'm going to circumvent all this voting crap, and we're putting Dante Scarnecchia in the team Hall of Fame this year. I'm doing that. And that is, out of all of the pillars that we talk about so much, Belichick, Brady, the two ones that I don't think get talked about enough are Dante Scarnecchia and Ernie Adams. And Dante Scarnecchia was their offensive line coach for 20 plus years. He predated Belichick in the organization. He predated Bill Parcells and Robert Kraft in the organization, right? So he goes all the way back to the 80s with the Patriots. And he's no longer the offensive line coach. He's retired now, and obviously, good for him. He coached for 40 years and should be retired. But the Patriots have had a little bit of a time, replacing him at this point and getting good offensive line play. Carmen Bracilla, who's the offensive line coach with the Raiders, he had a good year and a half run with Josh McDaniels, and then McDaniels took him with him to Vegas. So that left a void that made Matt Patricia the offensive line coach last year. We all remember how fun that was. And then this year, the Patriots hired Adrian Clem, who's was with Oregon the year before in college, and then was with Pittsburgh before that. So Adrian Clem's come out of under a little bit of fire here because of the play of the line. But I think it's fair context to put out there that in the spring and the summer, they did not have Michael Onwenu, who's probably their best offensive lineman. They then lose Cole Strange literally 20 minutes into the first padded practice of training camp. Cole Strange goes down with a knee injury. So your two starting guards out for the summer, missed the entire training camp. So that's kind of point one. Then point two was that they had this hole at right tackle. Last year, their right tackles were miserable. They played like 4 or 5 different guys at that spot. They never found somebody that could hold down the spot. This year, this offseason, their answer at right tackle was Riley Reef, who is 34 years old and was the 6th offensive lineman in Chicago. And based off the film with the Bears last year, was over the hill. Like, just didn't really have much left in the tank. So they bring him in to play right tackle. He gets hurt in the final preseason game of the summer. And I should also say he struggled so much at tackle that they ended up actually moving him already inside to guard before he even got hurt, right? So he was already out as the right tackle before we even got to the point that he got hurt. So then he gets hurt. So now you're down 3 guys already before you've even played a game that you are projecting to start for you this season. And it's just been a consistent revolving door of injuries, guys in and out of the lineup, guys coming back and then having setbacks or new injuries or whatever. Onwenu dressed last week, but didn't play a snap. And Belichick confirmed after the game that he was only available on an emergency basis. So he's hurt. Strange still hasn't played. He was ruled out before we even traveled to Vegas last weekend. Mm-hmm. And Riley Reef is back on the injury report as a DNP. So essentially what's happened with the Patriots offensive line is a combination of changing of the guard at the coaching staff level, injuries. And then I would also just say because Belichick doesn't deserve the cop-out right now, the addressing the tackle position in the offseason was piss poor. Like Riley Reef and Calvin Anderson being your 2 right tackle choices going into the season was not good enough, and we all kind of knew that going in, and unfortunately that's how it's played out for Patriots fans. So this was a negligence thing with the talent on the offensive line, and it was also just a bad luck run of injuries and just circumstances that have led us to the point where they have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And I don't think that that's an exaggeration to say that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. To be fair, I don't think there's a lot of tackles in the world or even good ones, especially at right tackles. We had the same argument, even though Spencer Brown's playing good now, there was the argument for our offseason of trying to upgrade or get insurance there. And it was kind of like, where? There's not a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
But
our answer was Jermaine Ifedi. So.
Correct. But this is a huge trickle effect. And I think it's really the point of contention for this whole offense. And it spills right over into this running game, because I was joking a little bit earlier about Patriots fans not picking up my phone calls. I still got a couple of them. And there's concern about Rhamondre Stevenson when I'm talking to Patriots fans. And when I'm looking, I don't see a difference in Rhamondre himself, but I think what you're seeing is the difference in the offensive line and a poor performing offensive line trying to run behind that. Can you talk about Stevenson and Zeke in this run game? And is it the running backs? Is it the play calling style, or is it just the trickle effect of this offensive line sort of being a makeshift one right now?
Yeah, I definitely think it's mainly the offensive line. Like if I had to hand out the blame pie, it'd probably be like 75% the line. But I would also hand out a little bit of blame to the way that they've schemed up the running game, or I should really say the lack of scheme. They're pretty like straightforward, like we're just going to kind of run duo and inside zone right at you sort of running game. They don't have a mobile quarterback, so that's not really a factor. And up until, the first 5 weeks, I think last week they did a much better job of incorporating jet motion and, end arounds and some different things like that with their receivers getting involved in the run game to try to open it up a little bit on the inside. But they have struggled so much running off tackle, running outside, crack tosses, outside zone, things like that, that everybody just packs the middle of the field and waits for you to run it right at them. And Rhamondre Stevenson and Zeke have just been running into a brick wall. So last week they did a better job, I would say, of trying to get the ball outside by hitting those jet sweeps and things like that. And then obviously using like the ghost motions and stuff like that to show the jet sweep and show the eye candy, but then end up running it up the middle of the field. Now, the question is was that a product of the Raiders run defense, which isn't very good, or did they actually make some progress in the second half against the Raiders in the run game? That's going to be determined this week, I guess, against Buffalo. But with Rhamondre specifically, I think what people miss is that it's a lot easier to break tackles when you're already moving forward, right? Like when you already have momentum to like, stack moves together and break tackles just by running through arm tackles and that, the old world, the contact balance that we all talk about during draft season so much. Like it's much easier to do all those different things when you have a head of steam. And for him, I think a lot of it has been, he hasn't been as effective. And I know you're going to, this is right up your guys' alley, running from the gun because, he's, he's a bigger back. He's 225 pounds. And when you're kind of getting the ball at a standstill versus getting that lead and that run up to the line of scrimmage, that has hurt him a little bit. And then he's also getting contacted a lot sooner than he was last year. So that has, I think, added up a lot of different things. But I think what the disappointing part is with Rhamondre is he's one of their more talented offensive players, if not their most talented offensive players. So they need him to be good. Like they can't afford him to have a down year. And I think that it's also trickled into like the passing game element of his game, which last year wasn't necessarily explosive, but he was a nice little safety blanket for Mac Jones to dump the ball off and pick up first downs that way. And now he's been regressing as a pass catcher as well, I think, because he's not in a rhythm in the run game. So all of that has really led to a ton of issues because they've dropped back the pass way too much because they can't run the ball. They're getting down in games early. And then all of a sudden you're getting into these games where Mac is passing 40, 50 times. And that's just not a way to live if you're the Patriots, and it invites the pressure and it puts a lot on Mac's plate. And that's how we get to where we are.
Yeah, right. Because the way you guys have been able to sort of stay at least competitive and in the hunt for playoffs, even without Tom Brady, is like really grinding away. You're not passing and beating teams that way. It's grinding. I mean, so not being able to do that clearly hurts. Here, last one on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm going to just package it sort of all together because we know about Mac Jones now and the struggles that he's having, but you guys have added some weapons, but not maybe quite enough in the pass catchers. Can we just kind of package the whole passing game in as one and talk about sort of what's going on? And I'm assuming that, to your point, it's a trickle effect from what we just talked about, the offensive line spilling into the run game, and then that spilling in to not putting them in great positions. When you have a quarterback like Mac Jones getting into bad, behind the sticks types of situations aren't good. You got to be ahead of the sticks, short passing stuff. Is that really all this is? Yeah. Or is Mac just not the guy and you got to find something else?
I think it's a combination of all of those things. I think the biggest thing is that the protection has been at times terrible. Like they're giving up like 50% pressure rates on Mac Jones in some of these games, like against Dallas. Dallas had 50% pressure rate on his dropbacks. Micah Parsons had 10 hurries in that game. And, they're just getting after Mac Jones. And I think that's a big thing. Like he's not a Josh Allen type quarterback that's just going to run out of pressure and then like make some, ridiculous like off platform throw and make things happen. So if he's not protected and he can't step into throws and he doesn't have time to process the defense and get it out to the right guy and things like that, that's his whole game. Like his whole game is predicated on his feet and eyes. And if his feet and eyes aren't in the right places and aren't doing the right things, then he's not going to be very good. Like he's just not physically talented enough to be good if those things are going wrong. So that's, I think, the Mac part of it is what I'm seeing. Footwork has been pretty miserable all year long. Just, happy feet in the pocket, not stepping into throws, throwing from narrow or just like awkward bases that he can't really drive the ball down the field. And he just doesn't have the arm talent to just, kind of throw it off his back foot all the time or something like that. And then his eyes have, really regressed, I would say, just in terms of his reads and getting to the open guy. Like he's locking into the initial read and the first read, or locking into guys like Hunter Henry, who kind of are like his reliables, and, just kind of looking at those guys and not seeing the whole field and things like that. So he's not playing good. I don't think that it's, he's absolved of any blame. But at the same time, I would say, when you put all of it together, and you really think about the pass protection, the lack of weapons in the passing game, the lack of running game, like if you're not a super, super talented guy at the quarterback position, I just don't really know like how you're supposed to succeed given these circumstances. And that's on Bill, right? Like that's on Bill Belichick, and that's on how they built this roster. Their big offseason acquisitions in the passing game were Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki. That was what they brought in to try to upgrade this passing game. And it wasn't like we're adding that to what we already have. We're subtracting Jacoby Myers and we're adding Juju Smith-Schuster. So they went backwards in that respect. Devontae Parker's come out of, a ton of criticism for dropping that pass at the end of the game last week against the Raiders, and then kind of not really owning up to it after the game all that much. And, so he's under a lot of heat from the fan base. Tyquan Thornton's been a complete bust as a second-round pick so far. And, this is just like all of it has kind of gone belly up on offense, where none of the personnel decisions that they've made have panned out. None of the draft picks on that side of the ball really have panned out in recent years. And so now you just have a talent void where they just don't have very many good players on that side of the ball.
So flipping to the other side of the ball, obviously what's been the consistent hallmark for Belichick for so long has been the defense. And I think obviously some of it you touched on. You can't look at the recent results without taking into account losing, pillars like Matt Judon and honestly Christian Gonzalez, even early on as a rookie, still giving them that weapon. But you certainly don't expect to look and see, 24th in the league in points given up, and having a run of 38 and 34 points. The last time I literally don't know the last time a Belichick team gave up 72 points in a 2-game stretch. On an overall standpoint, how much of that do you think is just kind of one of those snowball effect things when they get going the wrong direction, versus just some of those injuries exposing that, hey, maybe it's not quite as deep as it had been before? Because I know like some of the draft things, people were ecstatic, rightfully, I think, with the first 3 picks with Gonzalez and Keon White and Marte Mapu. I think there was a ton of depth still. When you look at the names on the depth chart, it still looks like a good defense to me. Why isn't that translating?
Well, I think that, in general, what's really happened in the last couple of weeks is Matthew Judon gets hurt in Dallas, is going to be out for a long time. My guess is that Matthew Judon's not going to come back this season. Like if the Patriots somehow miraculously go on a winning streak and they're back in playoff contention and it's December, he might come back. Like that's sort of the rumors right now, but they're probably not headed in that way. So why bring them back to be on a 2-9 football team or something like that late in the year? But when Matthew Judon got injured, their pass rush has just completely disappeared with Judon. First 4 games of the season, they had 10 sacks, like a 38% pressure rate. Now in the last 2 games without Judon, they've only had 2 sacks and a 27% pressure rate. So their pressure rate has declined by 10%. And it's not because of a lack of trying. Like they've tried to blitz, especially Derek Carr and the Saints. They blitzed like almost 50% of the time and didn't get home. Like they just didn't get any pressure on the quarterback. So they no longer have like any one-on-one winners besides Josh Uche, who's having a little bit of a slow start. So it's really just a tough time in terms of generating pass rush. And then when you look at the secondary, it's pretty much the same group as last year, but there's a big, JC coming back, I would say what it was last year and what it was in 21, like that, it's pretty comparable in terms of the talent now with JC back in the mix, JC Jackson. But they're missing a big one, and that's Devin McCourty, who retired, obviously, at the end of last year. His last game was the game in Buffalo last year. And when he retired, they didn't really have and this kind of goes back to some of the Belichick GMing, missteps. They never drafted a free safety to have waiting in the wings for Devin McCourty's eventual retirement. So Devin McCourty retires. They're a defense that loves to play single high post safety, and they don't have a post safety to play single high anymore. So it's like, now what do? You're putting guys like Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers, who are really box safeties and play better closer to the line of scrimmage. They have to be 12 yards off the ball at the snap of the play now because they're the new Devin McCourtys. And so they've given up a lot of plays that I think that if Devin had been there, especially at his peak, but even, late career Devin, they might not have given up as many of those deep balls that they've given up so far this year, just because he would have been there, right? Like he would have been in the right spots. And those guys are good players, but they're not necessarily familiar with playing that spot in the defense. And so they look a little bit lost back there at times. So that's been huge in terms of the secondary. I think what's disappointing about the defense is that they're still okay defensively. They're like 12th or 13th in DVOA on defense. Like they're not a terrible defense, but I think everybody was hoping and expecting that they were going to take that next step to that, kind of like how Cleveland has this year, where they, with Gonzalez, they were going to kind of be dominant on defense. And now they're just sort of okay again. Belichick will keep them like in the upper part of the league still. Like that's one side of the ball he still has a good feel for, but they're not going to be the dominant defense that they needed to be to win enough games to be like a playoff team or something like that.
And I think one of the things that strikes me is the flashes, the excitement, the buzz, specifically around Keon White and Marte Mapu in training camp and in the preseason seemed to match. Like they were buzzy names in the draft. I think that the Patriots got a great value on White, and then, kind of surprised people. Marte Mapu was a name floating out there for everybody, but then they snag them. They get Gonzalez obviously at a great spot. Then you hear all this buzz in training camp and in preseason. Gonzalez obviously right off the bat in there as a day one starter. I'm a little surprised, especially with some of the names ahead of them getting snaps. Why haven't we seen more playing time from White? And has Mapu played barely at all?
Yeah, so Keon White was going to play a lot more, and that was what the coaches told us, that once Judon went down, they were very candid about the fact, especially Gerard Mayo, that Keon White was going to have to play more. So he did play more the week before against New Orleans. He's really not – it hasn't translated yet for him. I think that a game's still moving pretty fast for him, and things like block recognition, pass rush plan, gap integrity, which is really important in the Patriots defense. Like they don't want you doing – your own thing. Like they don't want you freelancing in this defense where you're running past the quarterback or you're shooting a gap to try to make a play behind the line of scrimmage, but then you're leaving that gap open if it doesn't work. Like those are the types of things that they allow like a Judon to do. But if you're a rookie trying to get into Bill Belichick's circle of trust, that's not something that they're going to really want you to be doing too often. Then he gets a concussion last week, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 plays into the game against Vegas. So he's in concussion protocol now. And based off how the Patriots have handled concussions the last 3 or 4 years, he's not going to play in the game on Sunday. With Mapu, he didn't play. He went from
some
playing,
games he's been a big part of it, and then some games barely any snaps.
Yeah, so Mapu went from like a 50% pressure rate, snap rate guy in weeks 4 and 5 to 0 last week against the Raiders. So I don't know if it was something like game plan. They did use a lot of like traditional 7-man boxes because of Josh Jacobs in the run game. And so there was more beef, I guess, on the field, if you want to put it that way. But they still played a ton of that game in nickel and dime defense. So I don't really necessarily know why Marty Mapu didn't play. Maybe it was something like during the week, his head wasn't in it or something like that, and they try to scale it back. But what I think is interesting about this game, and my whole thing with Marty Mapu, is that since the spring, I've been screaming at everybody that will listen to me that he's a linebacker, right? Like he's a modern day NFL linebacker. He's not a safety, right? Like in the Patriots, they want to use him sometimes, I feel like, kind of like a Kyle Duggar or, Patrick Chung, like as like one of those safety hybrid players. And I'm like, no, like that guy is a linebacker. Like that's a missile downhill linebacker that can play in coverage because he's, smaller, more athletic. And, the comps that I kind of use for him were some of the Bills guys. Like Matt Milano is like 225 pounds and he's playing linebacker at an all pro level. Like you don't need to be Dante Hightower to play linebacker in the NFL. And I think what it makes this matchup so fascinating to me with Mapu is like, didn't they draft him to spy Josh Allen? Like, isn't that why he's here? Is like to have like a linebacker that can go sideline to sideline and play in a game that's speed based and chase Josh Allen around a little bit, and like maybe so that Allen doesn't just do ridiculous things against the Patriots all the time anymore. Like that's the whole point, right? And if they don't, then yikes. Like I don't know what they drafted him for if this isn't the game where they allow him to at least spy him on third downs or something like that, have some sort of role in this game against Allen, because we know that they've had a ton of trouble with Josh Allen for 3 or 4 years now. And I think a big reason why is because they can't get him on the ground, right? Like he just extends plays and extends plays and extends plays. And then they can't get him, sack him or push him out of bounds on that. Remember that throw last year?
Oh, I remember
up here,
exactly what you're talking about.
Like on the sideline, and Mac Wilson, who was the linebacker that was in pursuit, that was supposed to knock him out of bounds. Mac Wilson didn't play a snap on defense the rest of the season. They benched him after he didn't get Josh Allen out of bounds. So if that isn't that supposed to be Mapu, like that's what they sold us on, right? It was like, this is why we drafted this guy. And if he's not out there on Sunday doing what they drafted him for, then I quite frankly have no clue what they were thinking when they made the pick.
Yeah, and in the concussions, has anyone come back this year yet in a 1 week?
There are 3 players total in the league who have gone into concussion protocol from the previous game and played, but it's like 3 out of 40. Almost everyone has at least
40.
missed the one game, but there actually have been 3 who did clear concussion protocol for the Bills. Evan, last week, Dalton Kincaid was out because he was from the previous game. He's cleared it now, but he missed last week for that same reason. So I would assume Keon White will be in that boat, but we'll see.
Yeah. Evan, you've been here before. You know what time it is now. You have to tell us how you believe this game is going to go, and then we're going to put you on the record for a score prediction for this one.
Okay, so when I think about this game from the Bills standpoint, it reminds me, we were talking earlier on in the show about, the Patriots dynasty and how we dealt with the expectations and all that kind of stuff. This game reminds me of a divisional game that the Patriots would just, what we used to call, take care of business, right? Like it's not, I don't know if the Bills are going to come out here and blow the Patriots out by 35 points like Dallas did. Like, I don't know if I see that sort of game happening. It's a divisional game. The Patriots know them pretty well. Bills know the Patriots pretty well. I think the Bills, I know that the Bills are headed in a much, much different direction and are in a completely different class than the Patriots. And I think that they are going to come out in this game a lot like they did in that Thursday night game up here last year, and just kind of score enough points in the first half to run away from the Patriots. And then the second half, control the game, control clock, and get out of here with a 24-13 win, right? Like just ho-hum, like, we're better than you. I don't think that there's any real reason for the Bills to come out in this game and like show their full hand in terms of like Ken Dorsey and the offense. Like, I don't know why Buffalo would bother to even like do that sort of thing when they have
use your good
fry.
plays in this game.
Yeah,
to make the media happy, so the media will stop asking what's wrong.
Yeah,
with the
but that I swear to God, like I'm not making this up. Like that's legitimately how the Patriots used to approach some of these games, like against teams, like that were.
You can say it against Bills.
You can say it. You said what it was. Games like against the Bills.
Yeah, games like that where. If they did roll in some of those games because they were just the much better team and the other team made a bunch of mistakes, and that could definitely happen. Yeah, I think that could definitely happen in this game where like if the Bills pass rush really heats up against Mac Jones, that you could have a bunch of turnovers by the Patriots and the game could get out of hand. But like assuming that the game is kept under control by the Patriots and by Bill O'Brien for the most part, to me this is like. There's no reason to like unleash Josh Allen as a runner in this game or to, dust off things that they're saving for later on in the year. And the Patriots, I swear to God, they did that. Like they did that at this time of year when they knew that they didn't need to like play, their A game. They could just kind of get by with like a B+ game and keep everybody healthy, get on the bus and go back to Orchard Park, right? Like that's really how I see the Bills approaching this game. And I don't think that they're really in too much jeopardy of like being too cute with it, where they get into a position where like they're like not, kind of playing the four corners offense like we used to call it with the Patriots, and then all of a sudden they're in like this like close game late in the fourth quarter. It could go that way, I suppose, like it did with the Giants, but I just don't necessarily see that happening. But I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. Like I think that like I said, the way that the Bills run away with this game is if that pass rush and Von Miller and all those guys are just after Mac Jones, like the Cowboys were in that Week 4 game, and then the snowballs can happen with the turnovers. But if this game kind of goes just as a normal game would go, I kind of see it being a little bit more of like a take care of business type of situation.
So we certainly hope so as well. But
we need that.
Let the folks know where they can find more of your good work. We've had you on, I think, in many phases of your career, now over at Patriots.com and doing awesome work for them. Let the folks know where they can find all your good work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Patriots.com. So that's pretty easy in terms of the written work. We do radio ourselves or podcast ourselves on Patriots Unfiltered, and my show's Patriots Catch-22. We're on tomorrow from noon to 4 live, but then you can also get them as podcasts as well. So if you want to hear, more Patriots matchup talk and how this game looks from our angle, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'll get you guys on and we'll talk to you. But I think, this last thing, I wanted Buffalo fans, I think, should know that no single Patriots fan is like being naive about this team right now. Like the Patriots are in a bad way. And, this is going in a direction of like a complete and total blow it the F up and rebuild the entire team if this continues. So I'm afraid for this game a little bit on Sunday. Like I do think that this could be another Dallas Cowboys Saints situation if the Patriots let this thing get out of hand.
I keep warning my oldest son. He picks on the little guy every once in a while, but the little guy is sprouting up. He's got a 5. He's turning 5 here tomorrow. And I'm like, dude, this guy's going to get you one of these days. And I feel like we were the little brother, and now we're finally big enough to give it back to you a little bit here. So feel on our end, this does feel good. I waited a long time for Patriots people to say stuff like that. So I appreciate you coming on and making us feel good about that.
Appreciate
anytime, guys.
Evan.
Anytime.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
Talk to you, man.
Always fun. Anytime, guys.
And I know, obviously that means even more for you, Aaron, growing up where you did and being surrounded by Patriots fans. Like you said, they've almost taken some of the fun out of it because they're so resigned to the outcome and what's going on with this team. It's almost taken some of the fun out of it for you.
It definitely has, because I wasn't that guy, right? During the 7-win Bills years and the trend that I was always like, there's 9-10 wins in this schedule. We can hang with you guys and stuff like that. So I always had that false sense of optimism where that's not baked into their DNA. There's the Boston, they are so spoiled and entitled with titles across all their sports that if things aren't to a certain standard, they just go over to whatever. Honestly, they're all just paying attention to the Celtics because the Celtics are probably going to be in the running for a title again this year. And so they just want whatever team's hot and on the championship. So it isn't as fun, but I could do this for another 17 years. That would be okay with me.
Yeah, I would. I think I could get used to it. I could get used to it.
Oh, for sure.
So, obviously there's been a lot of angst and frustration in the fan base. I think that, on the one side of it, we fully understand the want for more consistency, the ability to, have what looks and feels easier in what's going on. But it's hard when a lot of that doesn't match up with the overall numbers. We saw different people nationally, for like Mike Sando chiming in on stuff and asking questions and being very odd from the outside, trying to wonder why people are as frustrated as they are. I know that, you were fighting that battle a great deal here. Where is your head at as far as how much valid frustration or criticism should there be versus just needing to give it time and thinking that it's something that is evolving and still heading in a very good direction?
The conversation's like really muddy right now. I think overall, the overwhelming majority of the Bills' offensive displays actually been probably nets out positive. Even in the games where they're not scoring points. I was saying this to Joe Marino the other day. We were talking about it because we are talking about the data. And I want to tell people that come at me of like, oh, you just look at charts and post charts. Like, I probably watch an annoying amount of football.
Yeah.
I'm not a film guy, so I'm not going to break down every single film. I never want to claim that I like to stay in my lane. I'm not going to start doing Ant and Eric film breakdowns on Twitter, but I watch a lot of it. I watch back to all 22. I watch 4 or 5 Patriots games getting ready for this. So I also have an eye test involved in this too. It's not just charts and data. And it's almost, I was saying to Joe, it's like the narrative would be so different if you just changed 10 plays. Right? Like even in that Giants game, dude, the Gabe Davis punch out, Okorike changed the outcome and the way we're even having the conversation. Tangled.
Gabe was about to catch like a 40-yard pass that all of a sudden we score on the first drive and everything's different.
That shot to Dawson Knox up the middle of the field, and now I know everybody's gonna make the joke, oh well, if Dawson Knox could even catch it, right? Like because he dropped one in the end, but that pass to Dawson Knox was there, it was on the and. It wasn't even a bad pass by Allen. It was a little low.
No, Okorike made a phenomenal
play on the ball. Yes. And so those things happen where you have a good play. It is a positive play. It grades out as a positive play. But the other team makes a better play. And there's really probably a handful of those in the Jags game too. And some of them are Josh being off by a few inches and a drive ends because he misses Stefon Diggs on a wide open route. Whatever the case is.
Leaves it short on what could have been a game-ending leak play to Dawson Knox.
And I don't think it's a lot. I think this is similar to the conversation we had about Josh Allen in week 1, right? Where it was like really ugly. And we had to tell people, hey, this is only like 15% of the Josh Allen experience is that Jets game. And then the other 85% is like really awesome, high level, super efficient quarterback play. I also think that is kind of what's going on now. And we're just so hyper focused on the bad because it does suck to go 3 quarters without scoring, but they did score. 2 out of the 3 drives that they had in the second half of that Giants game, they scored on. They also missed 2 field goals, and a couple of the drives in the first half had not necessarily fluky turnovers, but turnovers where the other team just made a play. And there's nothing your offense can do about that. And scoring 2 touchdowns and a half is still good. You do that throughout the game, you're scoring 30 points, right? Like, and 30 points is still good in the NFL, even though we know the Bills can score 40 plus. I think our expectations are high. Our expectations are chasing perfect. You say it all the time, like the pursuit of perfection. Like, don't get lost in that pursuit of perfection.
Don't let good be the enemy of, or don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yes, and they've been mostly good, right? And there's been times where it's looked bad. I'm not taking that away from fans that want to be mad. There's things to work on. Eric Turner, I didn't get a chance to watch an Eric show earlier because I was doing stuff, but I'm going to go back and watch it tonight because they're going to probably talk about some of the flaws and some of the things they want to see more of. I know I'm a fan. I want to see some more motion involved in this.
Pre-snap motion. I think some people have gone a little overboard with this under snap thing, and that, Dan Orlovsky and Chris Sims are talking about it. Don't get me wrong. I do know the benefits of it. I also know Josh is more comfortable in the shotgun. I'm okay doing the thing that Josh Allen's more comfortable doing. And that, could we do a little bit more under center? Sure, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
They are, though. They just had their game where they had the most snaps under center and they were doing play action under center. So it is trending that way. I don't think people realize how little the NFL actually operates under center. I think people should go look at some data to show who, and actually the efficiency in the EPA is actually pretty good at a shotgun. Josh is actually really good at a shotgun. So we're not going to take that away. We're not going to remove that. And some really good runs even came out of shotgun in the second half. So I think people go too far with all the things. We're not going to have the type of pre-snap motion that Miami's using or even that Kyle Shanahan uses, but I would like more. They are making a pretty substantial switch on really both sides of the ball, but on this offensive side of the ball, heading towards 12 personnel. And I know there was a big conversation about that got real muddy this week too, of saying, well, we need to go back to more 11 personnel because the 12 personnel is not really working. Well, that's not true. Their EPA for 12 personnel passing is as good as it's ever been. The 2020 Bills was the best offense we've had, right? In the Josh Allen era. And their EPA in 11 personnel passing, I think was 0.27. I think right now in 12 personnel for the Bills, it's 0.26. Like, it's just as good as our highest end EPA was So it's a transition. They're working Dalton Kincaid in. Josh Allen talked about that a little bit in his press conference today about some of this stuff takes time and reps and learning body language and guys knowing exactly where he expects them to be and what he expects them to do and stuff. And it's all going to come work out. Like Evan was saying, we don't want to be playing the best football that you have in October. The Bills have done that actually in the past, and it didn't work out all that great, right? So gaining wins, building it up while you're not playing your best football is a positive thing. They all watch this tape. They all see all the stuff we do. Josh, I would love that Josh said, all these armchair all-pro OCs and stuff like that. And the fans in the stands have no idea what we're doing, what we're trying to go through. And so there are some things to work out along this on this offense, but I do expect them to continue to move forward. And I think it will slowly get better as the year goes on.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to look at the fact that 48-20 win over the Dolphins was one of the most like dominant wins in franchise history when you consider like the level of opponent and how highly they were regarded coming in, and then to destroy them the way that they did. That was 17 days ago.
Yeah.
It was 17 days ago. Like that just happened.
Yep.
And that was culminating a 3-game stretch where, I mean, in 3 games, they scored 115 points.
Yeah.
Like that was this year. That was with this offensive coordinator. That was with this exact same offense. In that, yes, would I like it if they just scored 35, 45 points every single game? Of course I would. That would be great. I would love it if we scored touchdowns in every single quarter of every single game and just kept pulling away from teams over and over and over again. That would be awesome. You and I joke about it sometimes. That's why I don't care about college all that much, because that's what happens at college. Yeah. When you play Furman and you play Georgia Southern, you just blow teams out all the time. Well, guess what? In the NFL, the other team is filled of 53 professional athletes who are very highly paid to do their job. So it doesn't happen like that every single week. So yes, when we come in here and a really good defensive coordinator who had the entire week preparing with the guy who basically created our current offense, am I shocked that Wink Martindale all of a sudden had a pretty good game plan because he worked with Brian Daboll that whole time? No, I guess it's not shocking that they figured out some creative ways to do that and some things to do it. So
other before we get to the next segment, I know there was a comment made in one of the press conferences that Giants players had said something to the effect of like they knew who the Bills were based on tape. They were who we showed or something like that. They didn't show anything different. I think that's kind of like a pretty generic football statement. I think that got taken out. Like everybody is who they are on film. Like nobody's doing anything totally wild, crazy that you haven't seen. It might be different looks baked into it or present it in a different formation, but your looks are your looks and your core philosophy.
When the Dolphins pulled out the Wildcat, that was a team introducing something new that hadn't been seen before. Like other than that, like that's not how this works.
Yeah, there's little wrinkles and stuff, but I mean, the Bills offense is what it is.
Yeah, Dennis Green was right. You are who we thought you were. Yeah, that's how this works.
Pretty much.
All right. So one of our favorite things, we have just talked earlier today about how much we enjoy our new fantastic partnership with the folks over at Leftern. We love working with Greg and Melissa and the awesome team over there and all the good things they have to do. They have brought out another fantastic design for this week, and it's one that we were both very, very impressed with. So this week, as we take a look at it, the week 7 of this season 5 of the Leftern Game Day series is out now. This week's print is called Priceless. It was designed in the traditional tattoo style by local tattoo artist Josh Avery. 100 stamped and numbered prints get released each week on Instagram and Twitter at Leftern Co. So give them a follow. The website to purchase is www.leftern.co. There are actually 2 variants of this print available on the site. There are only 10 copies. You can customize yourself upon receiving, so grab one before they're gone. Individual print sales this season help support Buffalo Cares, a local nonprofit that helps find homes for abandoned and sheltered animals locally. We were actually joking with Greg earlier. I love it. It's a shout out to Sailor Jerry, an old school tattoo artist, and his design. So I thought that Josh put together a fantastic flash sheet here. Really, really cool to be able to put this together, and really a fun one to be able to look at with these old school looks. Makes me feel like a bunch of like World War II Marines coming home and getting their tattoos done.
Yeah, I do love these styles tattoos. I actually follow a lot of this type of art on Instagram. What I will also say is I don't love most Bills and football tattoos, but that Buffalo logo,
It is pretty sweet.
I would
pretty
get something
sweet.
like that. That's pretty cool. When I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, like because usually like the Buffalo tattoos don't do it for me. But that's a cool one there. So shout out to him, because that's hard to do, and to put all these, it's so super creative to like display it in this way, but also it be a flyer for a game is really creative.
Yeah, like, and yeah, for when you guys see the details, like the ribbons on some of them are the Buffalo and New England, and then 1 p.m. Sunday, October 22nd, the way that he tied it in was
Yeah.
still looking like it. Like when you first see it, it looks like a tattoo flash sheet you'd see when you go into a shop.
Right.
And it looks like that kind of design, but really it's a poster for the game. It's a really cool design the way that he did it. So, again, shout out to Josh and to Greg for working together with the good folks that he puts together each week for these new designs.
Man.
So along those lines, and I, honestly, in tying in with the conversation online and all the other frustration, we talked about it a little bit, some of the sprinkles we'd like to see. What's your fresh design of the week? What are you looking to see?
Dalton Kincaid, now that he's back out of this concussion protocol, I want to put to bed this 11 personnel, 12 personnel conversation, in that people are frustrated that he hasn't come out and been Laporta and gangbusters and blown their fantasy stats out of the water. It's coming. I think it's there. Eric has shown a number of times where I don't know where in the progression Dalton's supposed to be, but Josh made another great point this week that a lot of the progressions in this offense, Stefon Diggs is the first progression, and Stefon Diggs is open pretty much all the time. There was that Rookie Watch put out a video of Deonte Banks, who I like Deonte Banks, and I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to
got a bright future.
But it was like a 30-second clip of just Stefon Diggs beating him in coverage and being totally open, and a few of them Josh missed and stuff. But we're getting so frustrated that there's only one ball to go around. Everyone, for years, people were like, you got to force feed Diggs. And now they are giving Diggs all these looks and force feeding Diggs. And it does take away from the ability for a guy like Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox or Gabe Davis to get the type of touches. And really it impacts Hardy and Sherfield, who we thought were going to be more part of this offense. But this coming week, I do think with the matchup against this type of defense, I don't think they have the athleticism with some of the guys that are hurt and banged up. And like he said, not being able to have that necessarily single high safety back. I think that you can stretch the seam and do some things with Kincaid in 12 personnel and really showcase to the fans why you went out and drafted this guy and why we want to add to more of this wrinkle into the offense. And it's not just something that they just wanted this year, right? They've been trying to get more of this 12 personnel added to this offense back since Brian Daboll was here. And so there was a plan for it in place, and I have seen it work. I've seen it in the data. I've seen it in the film, but I want to see it work with Dalton Kincaid and getting a number of reps and being maybe that real number 2-3 target that we kind of all projected. I know I was pumping the brakes on the production that we would expect from him as a rookie, but then we saw the flashes. And so my brakes were off, and I want to see that now come to fruition now that we're a month plus into the season. Get him going. And I think that would qualm a lot of the frustration and anxiety that people have that this offense is broken and things like that if they were able to get him involved.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I was curious, Steve Noble here asking if it was going to be a call up of Andy Isabella on Sunday. I was wondering if that was maybe going to be your fresh design of the week.
Yes, I muted Andy Isabella's name both on Twitter and in my head, so I apologize.
So I think Kincaid is a great call, and I think I want to see even more of a lean in to the run game. I think that especially in a game like this where, Evan was right. We don't need to see. I do think, and I think some people have told themselves that we've gotten rid of Josh running the ball, and all we've done is chosen when to use it, and that there's been a conscious decision that, hey, 17 games of Josh running the ball is too much risk, and we don't need that. We need Josh to be able to run the ball in the playoffs, and if he's there and healthy, we'll let him do that then. But the difference of the value we get in him running the ball versus the risk of what can occur when that happens isn't a trade-off. So being in that kind of position, I think that we need the other players to continue to run the ball. We're seeing the best running back production that we've seen in the Josh Allen era. And I know some people have thrown out different trade things of needing to go after people, and I think that's fine. We saw the rumor of signing Leonard Fournette with the Damien Harris injury, and I get
But
it.
that was
Like,
linked to maybe Ty Johnson. They were worried he
correct.
was going
There was
to
a
be.
rumor that Ty Johnson was going to get claimed off the practice squad. So I don't know if that's an indicator that Ty Johnson's going to get called up for this game, maybe as a third running back. But honestly, the combo of James Cook and Latavius Murray have looked really good. Latavius Murray has no right to look as explosive as he does at 33 years old. Like, he's still a shot out of a cannon on some of those runs where his acceleration at his age and size, 6'3", 230. How does he get going that quickly to get up to speed? It's really impressive. And James Cook continues to look really, really good. So I want to lean in even further there. The more we do along those lines, the more impactful that the play action can be. We know that we're good at play action either way, but there's just so much more benefit downfield when you get those safeties to suck up. Evan talked about the fact they don't have a true center fielder. They're asking 2 box safeties to play center field, and that's the exact kind of thing we want. Run at him, get him to bite up on play action, hit Gabe Davis, maybe called up Andy Isabella on a deep bomb for the game to be able to see where it goes, or maybe Dalton Kincaid's first touchdown.
There we go. On the running game, as people know, the people that watch the show, my neighbor or my mailman Charlie and I were having a conversation here this week. He's a big James Cook guy, just like producer Chris. Started the same vein, been telling me James Cook's got to get more and more. I was kind of pushing back a little bit. Like, I love Cook, I love everything he's been doing, but my thing was like, I also want to see Murray get more, right? So where are you in terms of that split and load management here as the season goes on? Because I want to see both more, and I don't want a 50-50 split necessarily, but like, I think have the way Murray's playing also gives you that load management so that Cook doesn't have to be a bell cow and take more additional carries and hits than he needs to, so that he's ready late in the season when you need run game even more.
Yeah, I think that, right now, on the season, James Cook has 75 carries, Latavius Murray 31, Damien Harris 23. So it's not quite like 75-25, but it's close to that in the percentage that he has in some of the games here. I think that James Cook should be the lead back. James Cook should be getting the most touches. I don't think it's crazy that we could have it be closer to 60% or high 50s, like what we saw with Devin Singletary for many seasons, where he was. I think it's where both of us kind of projected that this could go. And I think right now, if you had told me that James Cook was going to average 60.5 yards per game, I would have been shocked. I would have been, that's putting him on pace for 1,000-yard rushing season. I don't know that I thought he was going to get 1,000 yards from a rushing standpoint. So I think that he's still doing some good things. He's, getting, it's 23 yards per receiving game. So he's on pace for another 400 there too. So, I mean, right now, James Cook is on pace for like a 1,400-yard season from scrimmage. That would be higher than any Devin Singletary season as a Buffalo Bill. So I think he deserves that. He's still running at a very efficient rate. He's still making very good plays. I think it can be a little more balanced. I don't want to shift it and have him not be the full primary back, but I think 75-31 is a little bit more than what we need it to be. I think that could easily be, even if you took 9 of those and it was, 66-40.
Sure.
That kind of mix between him and Latavius Murray. I think just a slight shift like that. I wouldn't mind Murray getting a few more touches just to keep Cook fresh and to continue to be as explosive as he is and still be that lead back.
And not even fresh in games,
Murray has earned it.
Fresh for the season, right? For the long haul.
So the names that got thrown out there, people like, Leonard Fournette is Latavius Murray is straight up better than Leonard Fournette. Anybody who was excited about that, we have the good version of what people think Leonard Fournette is right now. We have that. Latavius Murray is the good version of what you think Leonard Fournette is. Latavius Murray is already better than Leonard Fournette is. If they're going to do anything crazy, I know I had kind of joked around about it, looking at the contract, and I believe Joe Marino had said it on his show. If Tennessee, who is now 2-4 and in last place, and Ryan Tannehill's hurt, if they are going to make Derrick Henry available, I would be interested. I would want to find out more information about it. I looked, it's about $5.3 million for the rest of the year. Some of these other deals that have happened with other teams, the other teams eat a great deal of the money to get the better draft pick. If Tennessee makes it that it's not a big financial hit and it's a 4th round pick for Derrick Henry, is that I don't think it's a need.
It's not a need. I don't know.
They have to have. I think right now Cook and Murray are doing very, very well.
Yeah.
I would be hard pressed not to be interested in. Well, we could add Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to add more talent where you can. I just the way I see it with the backs they have. Murray, an underrated thing about Murray is he also can catch out of the back. Right? Like he's more of a versatile back than just. I think a lot of people think of him as he's just big and runs straight downhill, but he's
a very good receiver.
Yeah, he's a good receiving back. And so I think he gives you that flexibility where if you were in a pinch and needed him to start a game, like you don't have to change your offense that much for a guy like that, where I do think a Derrick Henry, as talented as he is and what he can do, and obviously his body of work, you know what he's capable of doing, what he's going to do, and your offense kind of has to just run the way that Derrick Henry runs, and you can't do necessarily all the things that James Cook can do or that you can do with Latavius Murray. And so I think that puts you maybe at a weird spot in this offense where, you get this tool, but then it's real specific. And when he's in, it maybe feels like you're showing your hand a little bit. That's just the first thought that pops into my mind. But I wouldn't turn down talent.
No, of course. We'd figure out, like, we would be going crazy and excited and figuring out a way to make it work. But obviously they don't need for that to happen. It's just a name that has been floated around there. I know Gale. Yeah. Austin Gale actually mentioned we could talk to your brother. He was his dream trades. I think his dream trade was Derrick Henry to the Ravens, but it was Jalen Johnson to the Bills.
I was
getting Bears cornerback Jalen Johnson.
I'd be more interested maybe in addressing some of what you've lost on the defensive side of the ball, even though defense still looks good. I wouldn't mind adding a linebacker to the mix. Obviously,
another
now
tech D tackle, another interior coverage linebacker, another, even if it's not a starting corner immediately, another corner who can step in and play and isn't.
So we're bringing back Levi. We're bringing back Levi Wallace. Is that what we're saying?
You want to know what? Yeah. Yes. Like that is actually the ideal kind of player that I would
for Pittsburgh.
Not crazy. Doesn't even like. I do think he would start. I think it'd be him and Benford that would start.
Probably.
But like, would just be like, hey, a good, steady,
the floor. You just keep the floor.
Dependable guy to be able to be in there. Because everybody brings up like Patrick Surtain. Of course, we like. Yes. Do you think we should go trade for a 23-year-old All-Pro? Yeah. Oh, that's a brilliant idea.
I would take two.
Maybe there's two of them we could go get. Hey, the Jets are struggling. Maybe they'll trade us Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
This idea that Patrick Surtain is available is so patently absurd. It's crazy. Like, he's untouchable. Like,
not at those elite positions.
Like, he is arguably the best cornerback in the NFL on a rookie contract. The Broncos have so many problems trading him away. It's like the Family Guy mystery box thing is like, we could have Patrick Surtain, or you could take the mystery box. The mystery box could be anything. It could even be Patrick Surtain. Yeah. Like, it's come on, people.
That one isn't happening. Yeah, you got to look at the more closer to the bottom of the barrel. But it's about, you don't need the top end guys, and the Bills aren't going to make those types of moves for top. I don't think. I think that
Dante Jackson is right there with Levi Wallace is another guy. He was a free agent target when we were looking at potential free agent. He's the kind of guy that I could see being a feasible piece. Jalen Johnson from Chicago is actually probably even slightly a tier above Levi and Dante Jackson, but those kind of guys where they come in, they start, it makes it so Dane Jackson is now, again, a really valuable depth piece, but doesn't have to be a starter, and we feel really good about where that is.
And Dane, with that, these injuries are the ones that scare me maybe the most. The types of, not scare me the most, but like, you don't know when plantar fasciitis is going to stop flaring. Like, you can do treatment, you can do a bunch of stuff, you can hit it with steroids, whatever.
Some guys are totally fine, and then Mike Lucas at The Athletic saying that there is no, if Patrick Surtain did get moved, it would be for the Jalen Ramsey trade. When Jalen Ramsey went from Jacksonville to the Rams, it was 2 firsts and a 4th.
Yeah,
there's no chance he goes for less than that. So if it's 2 firsts, a second, and Kyer Elam, that's the kind of trade it would be to be able to trade for Patrick Surtain. And even then, I don't know that they would do it. And then once you get him, he's going to want $25 million a year.
Correct.
Because he's the best cornerback in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's unrealistic. Those are premium positions.
Yeah, of course. If we can trade for him, by all means. I would give up 2 firsts, a second, and Kyer Elam to get him because he's the best cornerback in the NFL. Yeah. I think they would still turn that down.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. Like, this was another conversation I was having with Mailman Charlie. I don't know that the Bills need high-end cornerback play. Yes, it would be nice. Obviously, we want high-end, but what they really need are raising the floor of guys like Levi Wallace or Dante Jackson that can come in and play within the scheme. I think they have so much trust in the scheme. They are going to play it how they play it. If you just have guys that fit that mold, I think that people like Sean McDermott and Butler can get more out of less than maybe anyone else in the NFL. And so in terms of asset management, yes, I would do it too, Greg, but I think that this is a position they can kind of patch together and figure out with less.
And I would say T-Dobbs here asking about a killer nose tackle. I am going to trust the man that posted it himself. Daquan Jones said he's going to be back. I'm going to trust that he's going to be back. If you want to read an interesting article, Kyle Trimble over at Banged Up Bills actually laid out really good detail of the timeline and how reasonable it is. Not reasonable, how possible it is that Daquan Jones would be back for the playoffs. I'm going to put my faith and hope in that Daquan Jones can continue his breakout career season in the playoffs this season.
Hopefully he's not just drinking that Von Miller optimism.
Von Miller Kool-Aid.
Yeah. All right, we got to do some predictions.
Yeah, quick. I got to give shout out to some. I wish I knew who it was. Someone posted a reply on Von Miller's thing saying, if we were looking at the Earth destroying meteor barreling down on the planet, Von Miller would tell you everything's going to be okay and we're going to play on Monday.
Yeah, that meteor ain't touching us. Who went first last? I think you.
I think it's your turn.
It's my turn.
And real quick, Carl did do a super chat here asking if we're worried about the injuries. I will say I'm not yet because today was a walkthrough, so it's hard to know how conservative they are with those things. I will monitor that as the week goes. Obviously, Ed, Rousseau, and Dane not getting work today is something to monitor, but I won't be worried until I see later in the week.
Yeah, the Ed one is definitely on my radar. Being new with the foot or with the toe. Groot looked good to me. Like
I assume that's monitoring his foot injury.
Treatments.
We're going to see a lot of that for a couple weeks.
It could go on, especially in the early of the week practices. But the Dane Jackson one is concerning to me. This is one part that Mailman Charlie's not going to like to hear. He was mad at us for dumping on Kyer Elam a little bit, but I don't want to see Kyer Elam continue to be rolled out there as a starter right now. I like Dane Jackson and Benford for this defense. And so his foot continuing to be an issue. I hope it doesn't flare up throughout the week here, and him being limited is good. But I want to see him trending towards playing again, and maybe Kyer Elam still gets that start. But I want to have Dane Jackson available in case something goes the other way. You're getting real thin at that cornerback position now with Trey down, and so I'd like to get him back. But the other guys, kind of watch and monitor. I'm not worried about Group at Oliver. Maybe we'll see how it goes. It's weird because last year it was like all calves injuries and stuff. Like now it's all like feet injuries this year.
Yeah, I did, which is not great. I don't love feet injuries.
No.
I wouldn't read it that way. This question from Pops Mafia, Oliver couldn't do a walkthrough with his toe. It's not couldn't do. Like that's simply, hey, we're just giving him the day off. He's not even going to do the walkthrough. Now, don't get me wrong. It also could be that he is that injured, but I would not connect those things as a direct correlation that, he wasn't capable of doing a walkthrough today.
Right.
Oftentimes they'll manage that. Matter of fact, I feel pretty strongly that Dane Jackson and Gregory Rousseau is more maintenance of the existing injuries that they've had, so they don't have them do extra work when they don't have to. We don't know if that is the case of that or not, but it could be. I wouldn't read into that he wasn't capable of doing a walkthrough.
Yeah.
Give me a score.
Into predictions here. Honestly, it's very similar to what Evan was talking about. I think
me too.
I do think it is a take care of business. I don't know that it's going to be gangbusters, blow the doors open, but I think that Bills come out. I think they score quick. They score early. All this talk about starting slow is going to be the theme in the room. I think that they address that. They come out with some nice scripted stuff. I think they get some points on the board, make you feel a little bit better. I think they get up pretty early in this game. Go into halftime, maybe with I don't even know if the Patriots get a touchdown in the first half. I could see it being something 17-6, 17-3 going into half, and then Bills sort of, I think, coast through that second half. I have it 27-13 for this game. So close to, Evan had it, what, 24-13?
24-13, yeah.
So I think it's right around there. Maybe a late touchdown by the Patriots and something in part of the game that doesn't really matter, some garbage time stuff. But I think they're able to handle this team. Patriots I do respect their defense. I still respect Bill Belichick and what he's able to do. I think there's going to be moments where this offense struggles and balls get tipped and some fluky stuff happens. But at the end of the day, and I know I said this with the Giants, I do think the depth is really lacking in New England, and they just seem like a team that's a little bit lost and doesn't have any type of identity on that offensive side of the ball. And I just don't think that, the Giants got in on them, but there was a lot of different things that went into that game. Daboll having hip familiarity, Wink going up against Daboll's offense all the time, the Bills traveling back from London. That, I hate to make excuses, but that travel back and forth, that's a real thing. There's something there. A lot went into what I think we saw from that performance, and it wasn't as bad as it looked or felt or ended up being. And so I think, a lot of this national media noise, I know the Bills say they don't hear it. They hear it. Sean McDermott hears every single thing. And I do think that that's going to fuel them to take care of business against a divisional opponent that they've been kind of able to bully over the last few years.
Yeah. RJ's crazy thinking that the Patriots have a receiver capable of exposing cornerback depth. That's adorable, RJ. So the two predictions, the last two that were here, actually have one number from each of mine. Roy had it 24-10. Here, Jackie had it 28-9. I have 24-9.
Oh.
I don't think the weather is going to be awesome. I think it's supposed to be like 55 and rainy and kind of nasty. I think that the Patriots defense still has some good elements to it and some things that we need to be careful of. And their offense is really, really bad. And I don't think they're going to be able to score. And that was the case with the Giants, that ultimately we made it look closer than what it was, but they still scored 9 points and still didn't score a touchdown. And I don't think it's going to be terribly different with this team. I just don't think.
And Tyrod's probably better than Mac.
Yeah, Tyrod is better than Mac. That's not even a question. Tyrod Taylor is better than Mac Jones.
And Daniel Jones, I think.
And probably he's probably the best out of those three. Yes, he's probably better than both Joneses. I just don't think that they're in a position to be able to put up points with what they had there. And RJ, that's completely wrong. The Giants wide receivers are way better than the Patriots receivers. Way, way better. So we'll see where this thing goes. I just, this is a game that I don't think is going to be terribly exciting. I don't think it's going to be, some barn burner that we're, going back and rewatching years later. I think it's going to be like what Evan talked about, kind of a take care of business game. They're going to do what they need to do. I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be in question like this Giants game was. I think they're going to be more controlling than what this last game was. And they'll move on, find a way to win, and get ready for the next game.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. One last thing. So all of you that are in here watching, we do ask you guys to give us a like. It really helps a lot. Make sure you press the like button on the way out. And I know many people ask us for the best way to help us, and that's to sign up to do OnePass. Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One OnePass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore, or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
All right, Aaron. Any final messages for the people?
Let's just try to be nice to I know I come off certain ways. I'm passionate and I believe in the things that I believe in and things I see, but like I'm okay with everybody also having opposing opinions, and I understand the frustration. We said on the post-game show, like, the angst of nervous mafia and stuff like that. I know I get frustrated with that, but this team makes you feel that way. I understand why people are frustrated and want to yell and want to point fingers at stuff, but we're all on the same page here. We all want the same things. We all want this team to be good and enjoy wins. And let's try to keep it nice and be nice to each other. That's my only advice.
Yeah, I would love for a game that's more comfortable. I think even if it is some of the scores that we talked about, 24-9, 27-13, 24-13, those kind of things, just be a comfortable, easy win where everybody's feeling pretty good. Don't get me wrong, would it be cool if we have another perfect game and it's 48-13 like the playoff game was? Sure, that would be great. But just be a comfortable, easy win, get ready to move on, take care of business. Don't have it be in doubt. Don't have the Patriots have the ball with a chance to win the game late in the game, that kind of thing. Just be out of reach and comfortable. And I think everybody will be in good shape, and we'll go from there. This is the biggest a Buffalo Bills team has been favored in New England since before Drew Bledsoe. It's all the way back to the Kelly, Thurman, Bruce Smith days prior to Drew Bledsoe back in 93 was the last time the Bills were this big. They're an 8.5-point favorite in Foxboro. We're going into one of the, traditional powerhouses of the NFL, the most dominant franchise in the league the last 25 years, and we're an 8.5-point favorite. That's pretty cool.
It is fun. Yeah.
All right, guys. We appreciate you very much. The chat was awesome tonight. Shout out to producer Chris Kepner for helping keep all your comments flowing on the screen. But on behalf of Chris and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo.